troubles we have, the different trials we go through, anything that seems like it's going to tear us all down, if we let Him take control of it, He will build us up from that. He'll take it over.
Yes, amen.
We need the showers of blessings to come down. We need to be able to absorb those showers of blessings. Because if the rain comes down and we're not ready for it to absorb it, it's just going to fall off and keep going the other way. We don't need that to happen. All that in mind, I have a question for everybody this morning. And it's going to sound a little strange, but tell me, in your service to God, are you a sponge or are you a rock? Now, which one? I could get several different responses from that, I'm sure. But what's some of the characteristics of a sponge? A sponge is made to absorb. That's what its primary source is. It absorbs things. So the showers are coming down, it's going to absorb it. But if you're cast in the sea of troubles, the sponge absorbs everything. It doesn't choose which one it absorbs. It shows all of it.
Yes, amen. Amen. Good.
Now when it gets those things in there and it gets contaminated, how are you going to get them out?
Squeeze it.
It's like, think about it for you. If you're washing, well, let's say if you're washing a car, most people use sponges a lot of times. Now, if you're washing that and you're getting the dust and stuff off, and you're rinsing it out each time. But what happens if you run through a streak of dirt and you don't rinse it out? It spreads that dirt everywhere else. It spreads it to everything else around it. It contaminates whatever is on there. Anything that's involved with it is going to contaminate it.
Amen.
Now, to get it back out in a sponge, now, if you don't get it back out, it's going to get into the pores inside the deep parts of the sponge. It's not just on the surface, it's in the deep parts. So the deeper it goes, the more you have to rinse that out, and the more you have to take and wring that thing out and get it out of it. But unfortunately, a lot of us don't want God to wring us out. We want to just take and wash over it and leave the inner surface alone to get the outer surface. We don't want Him to take and get a hold of us and step on our toes in any which way. Step on the neighbor, step on everybody else. But don't step on us. He doesn't want, we don't want to get pushed in that respect. We want to just let the surface be touched.
That's it.
But then if we, so like I say, if we're a sponge, we're absorbing everything. It's not just the showers of blessings that we're getting.
That's right.
And it's not just the bad parts we're getting. But it's how much of each one stays in and how much you let God take out of the bad parts.
That's right. Amen.
And He has to be in control of it, because if He's not, we can't do it ourselves.
That's right.
That's right.
You show me one person here that can forgive their own sins.
No.
I can't.
No.
Nobody can.
No. Impossible.
That's right.
And there's another one of us that can take it out of us.
No.
You might open the door, but you can't push it out.
No, you can't. No. It's good.
In 2 Timothy, it says to study to show yourself approved.
Yes, it does.
Now, a lot of us have been maybe some years removed through school and stuff, as I have. It's been quite a while. But when we're studying for tests, what do? You just read over material and that's it?
No, sir.
No.
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 No, you have to study it and you have to try to get it inside you. You have to let it, whatever, you have to think about it and you have to let it go in.
Yes.
If you just study about it, just read it one time, whatever, and expect the next day or two for it to remember it, you may or you may not. But if you've got it inside, if you've got it and studied it and you've rehearsed it and you've thought about everything you're reading, it's going to stay there.
Amen.
And it's not just for that test, it's forever from that point.
Yes.
You might get a little rest with it, but if you see it again, you're going to remember it right for sure.
Yep. You'll know it.
So the characteristic of a sponge is to absorb, and as it absorbs, it gets bigger. It grows, as we do. When we absorb it from God, we grow in Him. But what happens if it's taken out of that water?
Dries out.
The water starts in it, starts to evaporate.
Yep.
And if it's a natural sponge that's in the water anyway, when it's taken out of it and it dries up, it's going to rot away.
Yep. Amen.
If we're taken out of the natural water that God has around us,
Come on.
we're going to rot away.
Yep.
We have to keep that constant flow from in. It has to be there.
Amen.
Because when it starts to evaporate and the water comes out, the sponge returns back to what it was to begin with before it ever got anything in it.
Yes, it does.
I don't know.
So you have to take that and you have to consider it, and you have to get yourself wrung out. Let God wring you out. Don't be so stubborn or whatever that you can't accept for somebody to tell you what you got going on. And it doesn't matter how long you've been into it, how short a time you've been into it. You have to let Him have it.
He's got it.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Amen.
So, to be a sponge can be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yes, it can.
Okay, now what about a rock? Anybody get anything about a rock?
Well, only the surface could be wet.
It's solid.
It's solid.
A rock is solid. A rock is strong. It doesn't yield on it. If you throw it against a wall or against a glass or against somebody, what's going to be hurt? That rock is still going to be a rock.
That's right.
Odds are it's not going to damage it. It's not going to do anything to it. It's going to be a rock.
That's right.
It doesn't give in, whatever. And it says, to some extent, that's like us. That's what Christ said in 1 Corinthians 16:13. Watch ye and stand fast in faith.
Yes.
Yes.
To stand fast, it's like a rock. A rock is strong. A rock doesn't yield. It stands.
It stands.
However,
However.
what about the downside of a rock? What happens when the rain falls down upon a rock?
It just gets wet.
It gets a little wet and most of it splatters off.
Yep.
Yes.
Hardly anything stays there. So, what about that part? It doesn't let anything in below the surface most times. Unless most things, if it gets anything at all, it's very little bit below the top surface. So on the outside, it can look very good. You take a rock and put it in a constant flow of water. Over time, thousands of years involved, that rock is going to create a smooth surface, almost flawless type surface on it.
Yeah, it will.
That's with constant flow of water going over it. But inside, nothing's changed. Only on the outside. You can look at the surface, and all you're seeing is the surface. That's what looks good.
Come on, that
It's
is
very
good.
pretty to you as far as that, but nothing below the surface has changed because that rock is so dense, it won't let anything in.
You better preach up there, brother.
And some are like me over the years. I've been very dense in my past.
Yes, amen. Yes.
I won't say anything that a lot of you don't already know, but I'm very dense at times. But you have to be willing to let things in. The inside wouldn't be changed
It's all right.
whatsoever.
No.
So which is going to be best, to be a sponge or a rock?
Depends on what you're around.
That's right.
How about some attributes of both? You have to be willing to let things enter into you.
Yes.
Unfortunately, sometimes those things are not going to be always good things.
That's true.
For that, then you need to be willing to let God wring you out. Let His blood flow over you. Let His Spirit wash over you.
Yes.
Wash you out, clean you out.
Clean you out.
And then as a rock, stand fast in that He has done for you.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Because
good.
it takes both of it as far as that.
Yes.
One by itself is nothing. One by itself cannot take it all.
No.
Just like us, one by ourselves, we cannot stand everything. It has to be a commitment between us and the Lord our God.
Amen.
Everything combined, it makes it all.
Amen.
Because without Him, we are nothing. He gave me this, and it's all about all the different things about it. But like I said, about studying and absorbing His material in.
That's good.
But when He showed me about being a sponge, then He got to say, well, what about the downside to it? Some things that you maybe not think about sometimes. And that's what this life is about, is what it is. It's not just to tell people, it's to get them to thinking, to let them know it's between them and God. It's always between them and
Yes,
God.
it is. Yes.
Man may not always understand everything you tell him,
No.
but God, He sees it all, He knows it all,
Yes, He does.
and He is willing to listen to you
Yes.
the way you talk to Him.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
As people, we get in part-time, we get so caught up in our own selves, our emotions, and everything else, tend to kind of take the front seat to everything else in front.
Yeah.
We tend to let certain things in, but we tend to shut other things out. We can't do that. Some things we have to turn away, and some things we have to let in.
Yeah.
How do we choose which one to be?
Tell us.
There's only one way to choose it, right? And it's not our choice to make.
That's right.
Other than the fact of letting God have His way. Now, if we get there and we're so stubborn in our own selves, we're so dense in our own selves, that we are that shiny rock that's in the stream. It's laying down at the bottom of the stream. It's got water flowing over it constantly. It's a shiny looking rock or whatever. But it's still just a rock.
It's just a rock.
It's still just a rock.
Just a rock.
It's not let anything in. It's been laying at the bottom of that stream for thousands of years, and nothing's got in yet.
That's good.
So,
That is good. It's good, Nathan.
And if you take a rock and out of the stream and you toss it back in the stream, what's going to happen? Is it going to float? It's going to go to the bottom and lay there. It's not going to do anything. It's just lay there. A sponge, on the other hand, if you throw it in there, it's going to float on top. It's going to float on top and it's going to ride above them. Although there's still some things from that impurities and stuff in that stream that's still going to get into it. There's all sorts of ways to look at these things. But I thought, come into this, and he came up and made about, like I said, about studying to show yourself approved, and about standing fast. Studying, you have to be able to sow in. Standing fast, you have to be like a rock. If you're only one or the other, you're going to be missing something. You've got to have a combination of the both of it.
Amen.
Many times in our lives, we get there and we try to stand fast in our faith, but unfortunately, we only want to be the rock.
Yes.
And the rock looks around and it sees other rocks.
Yes, it does. Yep.
It sees other rocks. Some may look different, some may have different shapes, different sizes, just like we all do. But you have to have the absorption. You have to take and let the rain of heaven fall down upon you. You have to be willing to let it come in. Many times we fall short of that, and sometimes it seems like the sponge has got so much in it it can't hold anymore. Well, I say to that, let your cup runneth over.
Yes.
Above everything else, don't try to just say, I've got enough and that's all there is. You'll never have enough. Not in this lifetime. You'll never have enough. Always be willing to accept more than what God's had in store for you. His blessings are endless if you allow Him to be in your life. His blessings are more than any of us can handle in our lives. And if we take time to look at our own selves, we won't have time to look at everybody else's. Take time to look at yourself. Take time to read His Word, to study His Word, to absorb it in. How much time was going to be left to even think about what anybody else has done?
It's not.
We preach His Word, we sing His Word, we take and set forth to Him. And we see things around us, but at the same time, it's not up to us to judge what's right or what's wrong in that. It's not our job to judge. It's our job to love as He loved. Set forth the love that He's got in you. Set it free, literally. Spread it forth to each other. Because believe me, as much as a smile is contagious, love is much more contagious. And between all that, you won't have time to be criticizing everybody around you. When I look in the mirror, I see me. I don't see everybody else. And I got enough time criticizing myself.
Me too.
But God didn't call me to be perfect. God called me to serve Him and spread His Word. Hopefully someday or whatever, I'll be what He wants me to be in the overall. I'm doing what He wants me to do. I feel that in my heart. And with all the other things, all the little shortcomings I may have in me, God's taking care of it one day at a time. So if you know God, I'm glad for you. And if you need anything from Him, this is the place to get it.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
If it's nothing else but just to thank Him for what He's done,
Amen.
or to maybe remove doubts or anything that's in your mind or whatever.
That's right.
He will be there. He'll do it.
Yes, He will.
All He asks is that you come to Him.
Amen.
That's all you need to do. Come to Him. That's really about all I have this morning. If anybody really needs some prayers or just wants to come to the altar, just to thank God. There doesn't have to be anything wrong. Just to thank God for what He's done for you. Anything at all.